Hi, my name's Prumihimo. Now, I love gemstones and I know I'm not alone in that. And of course I love the really high-end gemstones set in precious metals. But I also really like gemstones in their natural state, so that you can see all the quirks and idiosyncrasies. And the best way of getting all that effect from a gemstone, in my opinion, is by using gemstone chips. And of course the great news is they're really cheap as well. So what I want to show you in this video is how to make a gemstone chip Prumihimo bracelet, and we're going to use the regular round disc for this. Now the best gemstones for this, I believe, are the sort of stones that have lots of colours in them. So if we look at the ones I've got here I've used unakite, which has that wonderful sort of khaki and pink coloration. And I think when you see all those stones close together, you really get the effect of the stone. This one's tourmaline, which has an amazing range of colours. And this one is fluorite. And in this one I've actually added some little silver beads as well. And this is the one I'm going to show you how to make. Now, a quick word about the threading materials. You can use all sorts of different things. And some time ago I did an interesting exercise to see how the threading material would affect the outcome. So if we look at this little sample, this was made using flexible beading wire. And I used exactly the same number of unakite chips for each of these samples. So this gave me quite a spaced out look. This was made using 0.4 wire, and this is much more flexible and stays in place than flexible beading wire. So it has given me a more condensed look. But what I'm going to recommend for this is that we use this, and I've used here Eslon. Eslon cord comes in a little reel, 0.5 is the one I'm going to use. Now, any of these other materials and some others will be suitable, but this is what I particularly like because it gives the braid a nice flexibility. It can add a little bit of colour if you want it to, and it's very easy to use. Now, the sort of gemstones you're looking for are these sort of double strands. This is how they normally come, in a double strand like this. And this will make you a bracelet. There will be a bit of wastage, as you will see. And what you want to look for is chips that are quite smooth to your hand. I mean, obviously they have an irregular look, but what you don't want is any sharpness. So feel them with your hand because that's going to be against your wrist. And the other thing to look for is the size of the drill hole. And what you might find in some of the smaller chips, and particularly the more expensive sort of stone, that the hole is going to be a little bit small for you to get that Eslon through. And you're going to have to thread on a lot of beads, so you don't want it to be a struggle. So that's all the preparation. Let's get started. So this is the setup. Now, I do hope you are able to braid with beads using your round Prumihimo disc. If you're not sure, or if you need a little refresher, please refer to my video on this subject because there are lots of useful tips and hints to get a really good result. The braid structure we're going to do here is the basic round braid, and I'm using 8 cords, and I've got them on either side of the dots in the north, south, east and west positions. My cord length is 75 centimetres. Now this is quite generous. With chips, they're very irregular and they can be unpredictable in their cord consumption. So I recommend having a little bit more than you would normally have for just a round bead bracelet. I have put on my cords 35 gemstone chips on 6 of the cords. Now, when you're loading them on, I suggest that you stiffen the end of the cord with something like a brush-on super glue or clear nail varnish and let it harden. That's the key to it. Let it harden before you use it, and then it'll be like a little needle. That will help you to get through the chips. The important thing to remember is that you're going to have to cull some of the chips. They're not all equal. They're not all as good as each other. Some might have damaged holes and they could end up cutting through your cord, so don't use those. Some are very, very flat. They don't work well in the design. Some are much larger than others. You want the medium ones. They can be a range of different shapes and sizes, but all kind of medium, so they will fit in together. 35 was what I needed. You may need a completely different number. Gemstones are organic or natural products. They will be all different shapes and sizes. There's absolutely no way of knowing in advance how many you'll need. So you just need to braid to the length that suits you and be ready to put on more beads if necessary, or not use up all the beads. Keep them in position on your cord with a stop bead, and that is in this case a size 6 bead that I have passed the thread through once, and then I've come back round and threaded through in the same direction. So I can keep the beads close to the disc, but I can also release more cord as necessary. Now, that's 6 of my cords, but on 2 cords I've put size 8 galvanized silver seed beads, and those are on 2 diagonally opposite cords. It doesn't really matter which 2. So by diagonally opposite, I mean here and here, for instance. So they are diagonally opposite. This bracelet looks very pretty without the beads as well, so if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Right, so we're ready to go. There's going to be quite a bit of weight in this bracelet, so I recommend using a weight. I recommend that you just clip it onto your knot at the bottom to give you an even tension. It's not essential. If you really prefer not to use a weight, don't worry about that. And for demonstration purposes, because I have a table underneath, I will not be using it, and I will be trying to maintain an even tension with my fingers underneath. But my recommendation for this is to use a weight. So what you need to do is carry out your regular round braid moves until you have about 1 to 2 centimeters of braid without any beads on. And that gives you the little bit that you need to stick into your end clasp. And the way you do that, just as a quick reminder, is top right to bottom right, bottom left to top left, and a quarter turn. I cover this, as I've said, in detail in another video. Once you have completed your little bit of unbraided braid, unbeaded braid even, you then start to add in your gemstones. So allow them to drop down the cord, tuck them under the cord you're going across, keeping an eye on them. If necessary, using your thumb to keep them into position. And then with your other move, drop a gemstone down and tuck it under. Sometimes when you're doing, now do you see how that one jumped over? So I'm going to bring it right the way back. If they jump over, it's much easier to bring the cord right the way back and just use my thumb to encourage it to stay in position and keep an eye on it. Now I'm going to carry on moving around and I'm going to drop in another one. What you might find is that the first few are a little bit more difficult to drop into position. Once you've got a few, you'll find that the subsequent beads have something to sit on, as it were. Now I'm coming to a size 8 and I do that in exactly the same way. So it's very much like any sort of beaded Prumihimo using round braid. But the difference is you need to make these little gemstones snuggle into position. So as you're braiding them, take a look at them. Try to make sure that the cord has the shortest distance to travel. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to make sure that the hole is as close as possible to the braid. Also, as you're braiding, look carefully at the bead to see if one side is prettier than the other. You might have a really nice little feature in your bead and you might want to show that on the outside. So with this sort of braiding, All the time, you're watching your beads and making a decision. What you will find though is because this is a random selection of beads of all different shapes and sizes, they do actually fit in very neatly, like a little jigsaw puzzle. So let's turn over and see what's been happening. And there we go. This is tanzanite I'm using here, which has some subtle graduations of colour, and I think those little silver beads look very cute like that. So continue like that until your bracelet is the right length for you. The one other thing to watch out for is that your cords don't get tangled around any of the larger beads as you braid them. So just be mindful of that as you work. When you've finished the beaded section, then can create a little section, 1 to 2 centimeters of unbeaded braid so that you can put that into your clasp. And here is an example of, this is actually Larimar I've used here. This is an example of another braid. And I've done a slightly different technique here, where at the beginning and end of every cord, I put 2 of the little silver galvanized beads, as well as putting them within the braid. Just a little design feature. So you can play around with this idea. You could use different combinations of gemstones and you can have a lot of fun. But I think what's lovely about it is the way that the beads, the gemstones, do actually snuggle up very prettily together. Thank you so much for watching that. And I hope that by now you've got a beautiful gemstone braid that you can make into a bracelet like this. And I do have videos telling you how to finish off your braids using both the glued method and the wired on method, and you can find the details of those below. Now, if you've enjoyed this, what comes next? Well, maybe you could try something a little bit more challenging and make a necklace like these. Now, there are a lot more chips in here. You're going to have to do a lot more threading, but I hope you will agree that the effect is very dramatic, and they can be very heavy. So it works quite well to have chain at the back of the neck so that you don't have the beading all the way round. And you can do them plain like this, where I've not done any graduation. And here, or here I've done graduation. So I used 2 strands here. I used a smaller strand and a strand of larger chips here, and just sorted them out and threaded them on in a graduated pattern. So I hope you're going to have loads of fun with that. And if you have, then perhaps you'd like to see something else from me. I've got lots coming up. I've got lots already filmed. So by hitting the subscribe button, you will be notified of when I upload something new. It's really important for me to get feedback from you. So if you've liked this, even if you haven't liked it, please do feel free to say something in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And that way I can make sure that I improve all the time. You might have some suggestions of videos you'd like me to film. I'm all up for that. So until the next time, thank you very much for watching and goodbye.